Okay, we are live on tape here at the Hooters of Gainesville. This is Pat Dooley. That's Robbie and Andreu. You know us if you've been watching these Swampcasts. But we're going to talk today about Florida LSU. We are at Hooters. We probably should be eating Cajun food of some kind with LSU coming to town, Robbie.
Yeah, and Pat, talk about an ideal job. We're getting paid for sitting at Hooters. That's pretty good.
Yeah, and now this is my first time in a bar, so we'll have to adjust. I heard about it, but it's pretty nice here. All right, we're going to talk about Florida LSU. Obviously, big game for Florida. I think you could make the argument it's the biggest game of Urban Meyer's career so far. I mean, everybody would say, well, what about the national championship, the SEC championship? But as far as keeping this program headed in the right direction, Robbie, it's a huge game for Urban Meyer.
Yeah, mainly because the Ole Miss lost, Pat. Now they're kind of facing an elimination game again, and they're facing an LSU team that everybody thinks is maybe the most talented in the country. And it kind of reminds me of the Ohio State game a few years ago that a lot of people don't think Florida's going to win the game. A lot of people think they're overmatched, but I just don't see it that way.
Well, they don't have 50 days to prepare. That doesn't help either, as they did for Ohio State. But to me, Robbie, and I think everybody's pretty much saying this comes down to lines of scrimmages. Florida, a very undersized defensive line against a physical, big LSU offensive line. Florida's offensive line, which has struggled at times this year, appears we don't know whether Jim Tartt's going to play or if he's going to play one play or 10 or whatever, and going up against a great LSU defensive line. If Florida can't hold its own on the line of scrimmages, they're going to be in for a long night. Yeah,
Pat, line of scrimmage, LSU, a lot of people think they have the two best lines in the country, a lot of talent. The offensive line is massive, and we were talking to Dan McCarney yesterday. It's very athletic too, so they move well, they're big and strong. If they can control the ball with the running game, Florida's going to be in a lot of trouble.
This is the first game in a real gauntlet for Florida. They have 5 in a row against 5 really good defenses. I was looking up some of the numbers, and it's amazing when you look at South Carolina as second in total defense. You look at Vanderbilt as a turnover-eating machine, and obviously LSU, we know what they can do. So, and Georgia, not bad on defense. Yeah. So this is going to be tough for Florida. The gauntlet isn't going to be a gauntlet if they lose Saturday night, because then it's just going to be the rest of the season. So they've got to find a way to win this game. It's ginormous, as Will Ferrell said in Elf. Ginormous game for the Florida Gators. But
Pat, a lot of people are critical of Urban Meyer's offense right now. A lot of it has to do with the defense in this league. When Vanderbilt's dominating Auburn and things like that, it's a defensive-oriented league right now, and a lot of teams are struggling on offense, Florida included.
Yeah, Vanderbilt got a coordinator fired.
Yeah.
Vanderbilt shutting down Auburn, they fired their coordinator, Tony Franklin. But, that's a good point. 8 of the 22 top 22 nationally ranked defenses come from the SEC, and Florida being one of them. So that tells you how good the defenses are in this league. But we don't want to get into that whole criticizing Dan Mullen and the offense thing, Robbie. I don't want you writing any more blogs and getting former players mad. So we'll stay away from that. And they get really mad when they get mad. But another big factor here, Jarrett Lee, the LSU quarterback. Some people have fallen in love with this guy because of the Auburn game. He had a great second half, but to me, okay, that's what you've done.
Yeah.
That's your accomplishment, one half of football, and you got to think Florida's going to try to put a lot of pressure on him.
Pat, you know what Florida wants to do? Make Jarrett Lee look like the Jarrett Lee in the first half against Auburn. The guy that turned the ball over, a huge interception, looked totally lost. And I think that they're hoping they can do that. If they can, they're going to be in good shape on defense.
Yeah, and I think too, if you put a lot of guys in the box to try to stop the run, you kind of say, we're daring you to pass, and we're going to play man-to-man coverage out there. And I think, from what I've seen of Joe Hayden and some of these other guys, especially Joe Hayden, they may be up to it.
Yeah, in fact, the breakdowns, Pat, have been in zone coverage.
Right.
They're finding holes in the zone. Quarterbacks are having time to throw. So I think Florida needs to go ahead and take some risks. They're at home, play man-to-man, get after the quarterback, see what happens.
No question. I wrote this in my column in Saturday's paper, and you can read it at Gatorsports.com. Florida needs to do 2 things in this game. They need to man up, and they need to lighten up. They need to enjoy it. Go out and have some fun. It seems like this team has been playing tense all year, afraid to make a mistake, maybe afraid to lose a game, and they just kind of need to go and have some fun.
Yeah, when Tebow doesn't get excited about a touchdown in the fourth quarter on the road to kind of put the game away, something's not right there. So you're right, they need to relax, have fun again. They're at home, cut it loose a little bit.
Yeah, it's a swamp. Everybody's going to be hammered, and it's going to be unbelievable there. Everybody's going to be loud. It's going to be, the swamp at 12:30 and the swamp at 8. They're 2 different stadiums, Robbie.
Yeah, Urban Meyer was talking about that. It's just different at night. People have time to get really cranked up and ready to go, and the players get excited about it too, even though it's a long day sitting in the hotel. But by the time they get there, they're ready to go, and it's something about the swamp at night that appeals to the players a lot.
All right, we're going to close with our predictions, and I think you and I may have differing opinions, Robbie.
Yeah, well, I talked before, it kind of reminds me of the Ohio State game 2 years ago. People think, for some reason, LSU is way, way better than Florida. I just don't see that. Florida athletically matches up to them. So I'm going with the home field advantage, 22-19 Florida.
So you're going with the gamblers who had them as a 6-point favorite, and it came down to about 4 right now, right? I see it the other way, and here's why. Florida's offensive line had trouble with Miami's defensive line. They had trouble with Ole Miss's defensive line. They're playing a better defensive line than they played in those games, and that would be LSU. So I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a great game, but I'm picking LSU. You can't pick Florida every week. You look like a homer.
So we have a bet then, huh, Pat?
Yeah, I'll bet you some chicken wings at Hooters, and what that girl's holding right there. See that big? It's amber in color. It's got a little top to it. And Diet Coke. That's what we'll bet. All right, that's going to do it for our Swampcast here, live on tape at Hooters in Gainesville. Appreciate you guys for watching. Until next week, actually until after the game, we'll be live on tape from the Swamp after the game, very late at night. Until then, it's so long from the Sunshine State.